Hey everybody, it's the Four Gun Guy here, and I wanted to introduce you to the newest addition to the Four Gun Guy family, and that is my Vudoo V22 22 long rifle barreled action. Now, some of you have been following me are probably going to go, hey, wait a minute, you just started in 22 long rifle competition, and you have some videos out there with the Tikka T1x and mounted in the Oryx chassis. And that wasn't too long ago. And you know what? You're absolutely right. That wasn't too long ago. I shot that rifle in about 3 matches. It was fine. Nothing wrong with the rifle. But I start to see who's using what. And this is what's going to happen to you. And this is why I say, if you're going to get into PRS, if you're going to get into the 22 long rifle stuff, start out with an inexpensive rifle, right? An off-the-shelf rifle. And go to a few matches and just start to watch and see who's really using what and how they're doing in the matches. Now, a lot of it is me when I'm missing out there. It's not my rifle, but at least you get the good equipment that's going to help you at least take that piece out of the equation. Then you just have to work on your skills and the way you shoot. But back to the rifle. What I wanted to do today is, it's going to be a fairly short video. I just wanted to talk to you about why I chose the Vudoo V22. Let's get a little closer look at it. Talk about what I have mounted on this, why I mounted it in this chassis. And I'll talk about some things that I learned on my very first match with this, and probably a mistake I made shooting that first match with this rifle. So let's talk about all of that, some quick final thoughts, and then we'll be done. So if you're ready to go, let's get to it. Well, let's talk about why the Vudoo. Look, this is what a lot of the guys are using out there. I'm not going to lie, I didn't do a whole lot of research on this part of it. I talked to quite a few folks who shoot these, and basically where we're shooting down here in Texas, the competitions that are going on, this is probably the main higher end barreled action that people are shooting. Some of the better shooters are not even using their barrel, they're just using their action. So it's kind of like that PRS build of mine, where I've got the, I've got the action, the impact precision action, and then you're marrying a different barrel or your own barrel up to it. A lot of these guys are doing that. I happen to find a barreled action that was available, and that's the other thing. These things are back ordered quite a bit, probably 6 to 8 weeks. But I was able to find one through a friend of a friend, that kind of thing. And so I went ahead and purchased it. The rifle is unloaded, as you can see. The bolt is back. There's nothing in the magazine. There's nothing in the chamber. Everything's fine. Another thing about the Vudoo that I liked was it uses an AICS magazine. So it's their proprietary magazine, but I love these things. I love the way you can load them. It's basically, they've got a lever on either side here that I can just pull this down, if you can see there, and I can just load it easily, so you're not cramming your finger down in there. In fact, when I first got it, that's what I did. I was loading and I'm getting to that 8th round, and I'm like, what the heck? And then finally I looked at it and I went, oh, wait a minute, I can just I can just pull that down. So you live and you learn. So let's talk about, that's basically why I got this, right? It was look, a lot of other guys are using this. They're doing very well in the matches. It's a heavier action. It's a heavier barrel than I had on the Tikka. That was another thing, weight. You want weight with these 22s. Now, there are 2 schools of thought there. Some people are saying you do not want a lot of weight or need a lot of weight. You should be getting away with an 8-pound rifle or something like that, 10-pound, 12-pound rifle. Other people are going the opposite way, is no, you need a lot of weight. I'm with a lot of weight school of thought. And I'm going to tell you another reason why is that I wanted to keep things as consistent as I could between my PRS rifle and this rifle. Well, let's talk a little bit about just the rifle itself. Now, I told you I mounted it in my MDT ACC chassis. It was a breeze to do. I'll put the torque settings there, but again, it probably depend on what chassis you would put yours in. But I just wanted to show you that this bolt action of this Vudoo is just, it's buttery smooth. And again, it's very much like my PRS rifle, my 6.5 Creedmoor rifle. So I'm used to that. Same thing with the trigger then. When I'm on the gun, that's the crispness of that Trigger Tech diamond trigger. Now let's talk about an issue that I had my first match. I made the mistake of, here's what you do, right? You get the rifle in the day before the match. I mount it in the chassis. I go to an indoor range. That's awesome range. It has a 100-yard indoor setup. And I start zeroing at 50 yards. And everything seems to be working okay. But I do have some jams where the case won't eject, and then I have some feed issues. And I thought, well, it's probably just breaking in the magazine. That's probably the issue. So I zero it in. I go to the match the next day. The very first stage, jams. The second stage, jams. The third stage, I think I hit 4 targets and then jamming. Now, a buddy of mine was there, and Don, and he happened to have some Lapua Centeract. Now, if you do your research on Vudoo, you know what you're going to find? They have built this entire action around the Lapua 22 long rifle cartridge. So, Centerex, ActX, Midas Plus, all of those are designed really to work, I will say, optimally in this action. I was using Ely. So I was using Ely Match and Ely 10X, which I love Ely ammunition. But the problem with Ely is it's got a square nose on it. It's not a rounded nose. And they use wax as their lubrication, whereas Lapua, if you shoot Lapua 22 long rifle, it's kind of like, I'm just going to be kind of gross here. It's kind of like snot, right? That's all over the it's all over the bullet, all over the cartridge. So I bought he had a box 50. I bought it from him of Centerex. And the very next stage was a Know Your Limit KYL rack. And it went from large to small. So it went from a 2-inch circle to a quarter inch, right? What I was telling you before, quarter inch. Then it went quarter inch out to 2-inch circle. Sorry, I just bumped the camera up. I cleaned that stage at 50 yards. It was 50 yards. I cleaned it. No jams, no nothing. I shot that ammo the rest of the match, and it worked. This thing worked pretty flawlessly. Then after the match, I went back to a stage we had just shot, loaded up 10 rounds of 10X, Ely 10X, and it worked flawlessly as well again. So I think what happened is, and this is the mistake I was telling you that I made, maybe, and you shouldn't do it, I hadn't broken any of this in enough, right? Another thing that was mentioned to me, there's a very good shooter that happened to be at this match. And what he told me was, on these these poly magazines, he took his knife and he just started doing this to this thing, right here, right here. And he kind of whittled out a little ramp. And that helped. That helped quite a bit. So I came home and I did put some sandpaper in there and made it a little more. Well, let's end this section with just a recap of it. Number one, when you get that new rifle, don't just take it to the match the next day. You will most likely regret it, right? Run some ammo through it, find the right ammo for it. And I know in these days and times, that's kind of tough. You know, I had a bunch of Ely from my Tikka. I was hoping it would run, and some of it does. I will tell you that I've made this video over a period of time, and I actually shot this yesterday in my second 22 match with this rifle, the way it's set up. And this thing ran flawlessly. And actually the range footage that we're going to see here in a minute is from after that match yesterday. But this thing ran flawlessly with the X-Act ammo. Now, what you're also going to see in the next section here is that after the match, I did some shooting with Ely 10x. And so far, that stuff has worked flawlessly in this. One other thing that in the close-up I didn't mention was some people have noticed that when you're inserting the magazine, you can have some feeding issues because of, for example, loading this against your bag. But anyway, keep things like that in your mind in consideration, right? I've added some electrical tape here, red electrical tape on this leading edge of the magazine, and it seems to have done a good job. So again, break it in, get it zeroed. Don't just go to a match and shoot the next day. You're going to regret it. So let's get out to the range and see this thing in action. Well, here we are. We're at the range, and let's put some rounds through this thing. So I'm going to set this to 0 because I've zeroed it at 50 yards, and I don't think there's going to be much wind here. I'm probably just going to hold the target. Let's see here. Chamber flag out. Now, I'm just using Ely 10x for practice and just to show you guys. Let me start my video of the rack that we're going to shoot at. Now this rack is at 50 yards, and I can't remember the sizes of these things. I want to say the largest plate, the largest target there is 2 inches. I'm going to adjust my parallax. Oh, that's crystal clear. And it looks like we actually knocked a target off in competition today. We had a tournament or a match here today. But let's see if we can do some damage here. There's one. Try to shoot that third one. That third one is, I think, 1.5 inches. Just missed that one. There's probably a little wind. Yep. That was 1 inch. I think that's 3/4 of an inch. That's 1/2 inch. And that's 1/4 of an inch. So that's a little less than the width of your little finger. So yeah, I've got one more in here. Let's just use it. I'll go back to the big one for grins and pop it. I think that's it. No, I've got one more. Okay. Let's shoot the second. Now I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Click. All right. So I just wanted to kind of run some rounds through this. Let's talk about this bolt. Is so smooth. I mean, it's just, you know, I put a little bit of mag out, a little bit of grease on there, and it just runs so smoothly. This zero compromise scope, guys, I mean, I have to tell you, the reticle on this, the parallax on this, everything about this scope, I just love it. So it's been a great match. And in my other video, I talk about the fact that the MDT-ACC chassis Remember I originally bought a Manners TCS. I was going to put this barreled action in it. Then I decided to move it to the to the ACC chassis here. I've since sold the TCS stock, and I ordered another MDT ACC, and that's a whole nother video I'm doing on making my PRS rifle and this Vudoo exactly the same. Exactly the same. Same scope, same chassis, same trigger pull, everything down to the bipod, except of course the recoil, because you're dealing with a 22 long rifle here and you're dealing with a 6.5 Creedmoor over there. But I talk more about that in that video. But guys, I have to tell you, this rifle is flawless once you figure out how to properly load this magazine. Now, you know, I think I talked about this before, but in the first match I shot with this last month, I had a lot of jamming issues. Number one, I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, it's okay with 10X, right? You can see I ran the bolt just fine here. It chambered fine, it ejected fine. But I promise you, if I put Ely match in this magazine and run this rifle, I will have a jam, or 2 or 3 in a 10-round magazine. It will fail to eject that brass, that case. And I don't know why. The only thing I can think of is the match cases must be different than the 10X cases. And from what I understand, 10X is just the better match ammo when it comes off the line, but maybe that isn't true. But I can tell you 10X ejects fine, match does not. Ely Club, I think I had a couple issues with it, but I found some X-Act. I found 2 bricks of this at a local store, and so I bought 2 bricks of this. This is what I used today in the match. Had no problems whatsoever. But let's get back to the loading. The key here is that when you're loading these magazines, I didn't know this, but when you're loading these magazines, you're loading the first round, okay? And the second round when you load it, I don't even know if this is going to come in here, but let's try. Let's try. The second round when you load it, and I love these mags because they have this pull down option here that you can just pull it down, make some room. But when you load this second round, if you can see this, I hope it's coming in, and you push this back, you just make sure that it stops. That's it. Because here's what happens, and I even sometimes will push it just to make sure, if you look behind here, I don't know if you can see, just to make sure only this bullet is trying to come out. What will happen is you'll get this bullet, you'll get the edge of this base behind the edge of the other base. And all of a sudden what you have is, this is the bullet, let's say this is the bullet below, this is the bullet above. This edge, instead of being like this, you put it in and it becomes like this. Now when you try to chamber this top round, it's pulling this bottom round with it, and that's causing some serious jamming. So you just have to make sure, and there's a way that these look. Let me just load this up real quick. There's a way that these magazines look when they're loaded properly, and you'll be able to check yourself to make sure that you've done it right. I'm just going to do these 10 rounds here real quickly if I can. I tell you, it was windy today. Windy. The wind was blowing probably from about 9 o'clock, directionally, 9 o'clock, and it didn't, sometimes it felt like it was only 4, 5, 6 miles an hour, sometime gusting to 10. Let's look at this. Let's see if this will focus in on that. Right there. Come on, baby, focus. I think it is. You can see how they look like teeth almost in there, right? They're offset, and that means that they'll chamber well. So let's do this. Let's look at another target, and we'll put some shots downrange. Okay, I've got another plate down there. I'm going to start the video over here. This plate is at 131 yards, and of course the wind just popped up here, right? So let's see. This is telling us that I need to dial 3.2 up. There's 3, 1, 2, and then it's saying, well, it's calling for about a 7/10 wind hold, 7/10 left. So let's dial 7, just see what happens here, okay? Let's just see what happens here. And we'll start with the larger one. My parallax set, there it is, beautiful. Oh my God, this scope is gorgeous. This table's a little wobbly. There we go, hit that one. That looked dead center, didn't it? Hit that one. That looked dead center. By Jove, I think he's got it. Wind picked up a little. Yeah. I held off that, but let me just put it right on it. Yeah, I didn't need to hold. Let's see here. Got it. Hey, got all 5. That's pretty awesome. There's a little prairie dog down there. Maybe I'll shoot him too. No, I think there's a little more wind there with him. Got him. I'm going to come back to the big circle. Wow, that's pretty much almost on top. I think that's it. Yep. All right, so hey, 131 yards. I think I missed one. So again, this rifle's just so easy to operate. Look, they're all the same bolt, right? They're bolt action 22s, but I'm just telling you, this action, this barrel, the way they've got this thing set up is just really fantastic. So let's get back for some final thoughts. Okay guys, pretty short closing here. Final thoughts, that is. Love it. The Vudoo V22 has really performed well after we got over those initial hurdles, right? Which was the magazine kind of challenges, finding the right ammo, and as you just saw it at the range, shot well with the 10X, shoots very well with any Lapua I've put in it so far, but you're going to have to really watch the ammo that you get and find what works for your rifle. I don't care if it's not a Vudoo, whatever you've got, that Tikka T1x. Remember, I did a whole ammo review on that thing, and we found what seemed to work best in that rifle. So go through that process. So yeah, love it. Got some other reviews coming up. I'm going to do a review on this Zero Compromise. I've got a tripod review coming up. I was at the match yesterday. I used the tripod a lot. I also used it at the PRS match last weekend. I did well for me in that match. And I thought, I'm going to do a video on when, why, how to use a tripod in your positions. So I've got that. I've also got my standardization video, I'll call it, where we're going to discuss my thoughts around why I'm really standardizing across platforms. So the 22 and the PRS, my 6.5 Creedmoor rifle, and they're going to be pretty much exactly the same, except for, of course, the barreled actions. But I wanted to do a video on that and just get your thoughts on that. You know, do you think I'm crazy? Do you think it makes sense? So we're going to do that, and in a couple other videos I've got in mind. So stay tuned. I appreciate all the comments, the likes, the subscriptions. Again, just a fantastic community we're building slowly but surely. And until next time, I want you to all shoot straight.